because, when you have one person in the family who's got anger issues, it's very scary for children. It's very traumatic. So they have grown up with those traumas and fear, and so you've caused all of that. Firstly, let me tell you, it takes a long time for a person to admit that I want to change. I am fine, everybody else is wrong. This is most people's attitude. Blame. In meditation, your self-awareness increases. And when your self-awareness increases, what happens is that normally, like when you get angry and you have a knee-jerk reaction, meditation will help you stop that knee-jerk reaction and help you to just take that little pause and respond instead of knee-jerk reaction.
Hi, welcome to the Seek podcast. Following is a conversation with Ms. Mala Barua. She's one of the most senior teachers here with us at Seek. Her classes are deeply loved by all seekers. She brings in more than 30 years of experience across Vedic, Buddhist, and yogic techniques, and she's done a lot of personal development and therapeutic work across the globe. Today, our conversation is to understand and learn how to manage anger. So here's Mala. Hi, Mala.
Hi, Kshitij.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Today, I want to just talk about anger. That's the theme of the day.
Okay.
And I want to cover with you what are the different types of angers, how people can recognize angers, and why do they happen, and what one can do to sort of manage that.
Okay.
And I know from sort of learning with you that there are many layers. It's just that most of us don't sort of think about that on a day-to-day basis when we should be. And it ends up affecting us in many different spheres of our life. So I want to start off by just talking about anger in the most traditional way. When we think of somebody being angry or anger in general, we think of somebody shouting at someone or storming off, closing the door behind them, or being extremely rude or saying hurtful things. Is there more to anger, or am I describing anger correctly?
No, you're describing it very correctly, for sure. That's what we ostensibly see. That's what we recognize as anger. But there are, like you said, many reasons why that happens. There are many, there's background to it. A lot of people, when they get angry, they don't delve deeper into the emotion of anger. They just feel angry, and then they'll say sorry, and they'll think it's done, But by saying sorry, the damage actually is already done before. So saying sorry, like they say, saying sorry doesn't make a dead man alive. So you've created the damage to the person at whom you've been angry, and you've also created damage to yourself. So people actually don't think deeply enough about anger. They know they have it for whatever reason. We'll go into that a little bit later. But they're not even aware that they can actually work on it. Most of it is suppressed. Most people think that, okay, if I don't show my anger, then I don't have anger.
Right. So there are essentially, then what you're saying is there is a showy type of anger, but there are a lot of other people who have angers which they are not super expressive about. And the other thing you brought up, which I want to pick up first, is how people don't realize the core emotion that is anger.
Yeah.
And don't realize that the damage that happens when they shout at somebody or could be potentially more long lasting than can be recovered by them saying sorry immediately thereafter. So you mentioned that the damage when somebody shouts is done to both the person who is angry and obviously the person who they're angry at. I want to understand both of these. Could you talk about how does the person who's angry gets impacted themselves, and then we'll get to the other person.
See, that's the other thing also. When a person gets angry, they don't realize that they're damaging themselves. They only think that, oh, I got angry, so the other person must be hurt or damaged.
Right.
So firstly, if I get angry, I'm also being physically impacted. My blood pressure is going up, my heart rate's going up.
Right.
Plus, anger causes stress. So stress can cause me anything, obesity, diabetes, all of this. We don't
Right.
think deeply enough about the impact of anger on us itself.
Right. I fully agree with you. I think there is a massive physiological impact of having anger that
Yeah.
can lead to many, many diseases in the
Yeah.
longer run.
And if I think that if I say sorry to the other person, the impact will go away, it doesn't. They've been hurt. And a lot of the times, we are saying things, we later say, no, but I didn't mean that. I said it in anger. But actually, it's come from you. So there is an element of you meaning that. And the hurt that is caused in the other person, some people may be able to forgive more easily than others, but that hurt can be buried in the person receiving the anger. And if that's not, if that person is not doing his or her own forgiving work, then that's lodged in her body or his
Right.
body.
Right.
And that itself can then come back to me at some other point, because he remembers I said that or she said that, because they have not worked on it. So there's that two-way thing going on.
Right.
So it's best to really work on ourselves, take ownership of my anger. I mean, even if you, let's say, provoked me, I say, yeah, but I got angry only because you provoked me. Sure, you provoked me, but I have to still take ownership of my own anger. So that's very important,
Right.
to understand this two-way thing of anger.
Right. And then without any sort of mitigation at both the people's ends, it can further grow and become much bigger.
Exactly.
It affects us
Exactly.
subconsciously in more ways.
Exactly.
And-
Subconsciously and physically.
right.
So
Right.
anything negative you lodge in the body, anyway, is going to turn into illness or disease, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What was super interesting is that you mentioned that people don't understand or go deep enough or reflect on the core anger emotion. Can we delve a little deeper into what are the core causes of anger, or what are the core things that lead to anger, which
Yeah.
people should be recognizing and should be called out for what it is?
Yeah, of course. I mean, anger usually is considered a secondary emotion.
Okay.
The root cause of anger could be a hurt. If you've hurt me, I'll get angry with you. It could be grief. If I've lost a loved one, I could be angry. I mean, some people even feel angry with God for the loss, So anger can come from that. Anger can also come from if I want to control you and I'm not being able to control you. So that sense of power I can't have can cause me anger. Sometimes a lot of pain, and we don't want to address the pain, the vulnerability of the pain. We just show it as anger.
Right.
So it has so many different reasons. And if you don't explore that, then how are you going to get rid of your anger, basically?
Right.
It has to be explored. It has to be recognized. It has to be admitted to. When we're on this journey of personal development, of self-reflection, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves, because the mind is constantly playing tricks on us. And if I say to myself, no, I'm not hurt, I just got angry, I'm being dishonest to myself. But if I can recognize that I was hurt and therefore I got angry, then I can work on my hurt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think the fact that anger is a secondary emotion, I think, is a revelation for many.
Yeah.
That there is something that happened first, in terms of your emotional journey itself, not something circumstantial.
Yeah.
But it's that first you feel hurt, and then as a result of that hurt, you feel angry. Which I think a lot of people don't understand that well.
Even in a work situation, for example, if you're a control freak, and you want to control everything, and you're not being able to control somebody or some situation, you get angry.
Yeah.
But you have to recognize that you're angry because of this reason.
Right.
And then maybe you can allow yourself to let go or delegate or trust or whatever that needs to be done in order for you to give up that sense of control.
Right. I think the big important piece here is that unless that primary emotion is identified, no real work can actually happen.
That's right.
No work on improving it can happen.
That's
because
right.
you can get angry and feel like, oh, I need to do something about it. But you won't know where to begin with.
That's right. Absolutely.
Unless you know that the underlying cause is something that I can reflect upon or sort of mitigate.
Yeah. Even grief, like in families, if let's say a parent loses a child, two parents, a couple loses a child, and they're not able to handle their own emotions properly. Let's say they have anger, blame. They happen because you did this, or you happen because you did that. And couples can even separate.
Right.
Because of that loss. Whereas actually, if they work on it, they can become closer because of that loss, So anger has many different ways of expressing itself.
This is exactly what I wanted to get to. You mentioned that in the beginning that some people are far more expressive about their anger than others. And typically we look at people who are more expressive and say that, okay, they are people who are super angry. But I want you to talk about other forms of anger, where some people could not be so expressive and, they really are super angry, but it's their mechanism of expression that sort of creates that confusion in the minds of others as well, and may actually lead to them not recognizing their anger in the first place.
Yeah, they could be actually totally not even conscious of their anger. They really believe they don't have anger. See, we also have in our society, all of us want to be seen as perfect. We're good, So when you play this good girl thing, then you don't show anger. And you might suppress it. And you say, okay, it doesn't matter. So you think, okay, I won't get angry. I'm a good girl. I won't get angry. And you say, okay, it doesn't matter. So many times in a relationship, a lot of things you compromise on. You say, okay, it happened once. Okay, it doesn't matter. This happened. But all of that builds up. And then what happens is, slowly, I start disliking my partner because he is nicely expressing his anger. I'm being a good girl and suppressing everything. So then I start being sarcastic. Or I start closing my communication with him. Or I'm passive aggressive. Passive aggressive is a very unhealthy way of, of communication. So all these things can happen. And that person does not realize that this is also anger. Anger does not have to mean you're throwing things and bashing windows or throwing a tantrum. The thing with personal development is also, like I said before, you have to swallow that humble pie, You have to say, yes, I'm not perfect. Yes, I have anger. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm hurt. Yes, I'm grieving, whatever. You can't always say, I'm fine. Everything's good. I'm fine. It's not. As long as we have an ego, there will be ups and downs of emotions. And so that's where meditation comes in. It makes us very precisely aware of what's going on in our inner self.
Right. I want to get back to I want to delve deeper into the meditation aspect, and we get to that. I want to first just instantly go back to how there is the more expressive kind of anger, and how, for example, sarcasm or withdrawing or being passive aggressive are also expressions of anger that are equally valid.
Correct.
And you mentioned that they are a result of a person trying to suppress their anger and trying to be a good person, a good girl, or a good man. Is that better than, is it being expressive better than being sarcastic? I mean, what
I
is your
think
view on that?
when you're expressive, you may have let it out of your system, but you've damaged somebody else,
Okay.
hurt somebody else. Whereas if you're keeping it inside you, you're hurting yourself. But both ways, you're not helping the relationship.
Understood. And of course, I mean, I think in both cases, there is a lot of self-damage that goes with it.
Absolutely.
Even if you're expressive, then it can result, in physiological changes that we discussed before.
Because anger causes stress also. No? When you're getting angry, it's causing stress. And stress is
Right.
damaging.
Right.
People don't link the two. How can I have anger? How can my anger cause me diabetes? How can my anger cause me obesity? How can my anger cause me my heart problem? But stress.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all linked.
It's all linked.
Now I want to jump to, sorry, before I get to how one can manage their anger, I want to also understand if genetics has a role to play in anger. Is it because I've heard this somewhere that, there are, our lineage is only of angry people. There are certain communities that are considered more angry than others. Is there a relation at all to some of these super external out of control factors? Or is it largely comes from how you respond to your own emotions?
I mean, genetics, of course, plays a part, 100%. I mean, there's also post-generational stuff that is now, people are talking about what your ancestors felt also is coming down to you. It's not just you alone. Genetics, definitely. But I believe that you can beat your genes. So what happens is if I sit with the idea that, oh, I had an angry mother, so that's why I'm angry, then I'm not taking ownership of my anger. I'm putting it on my mother.
Right.
Okay. But if I take ownership of my anger, then the genes doesn't matter. I can change.
So you're saying genetics can be a valid cause of a certain someone being more angry, but that doesn't absolve them of
ownership. See, also you've heard of epigenetics, right?
No.
So epigenetics is like it's quite a new thing that people are. There's this guy called Bruce Lipton. He's written a book called Biology of Belief. It's very interesting. But epigenetics basically means that you can have a set of genes, but depending on your circumstances and your experiences in life, those genes can change. So it's not set in stone that these are your genes and this is it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very interesting. So we cannot blame anybody or anything. We have to take ownership of absolute every single emotion of us and constantly keep changing.
With that, I want to segue into what one can do if they understand, for example, that, okay, they give in to anger at times. They could then regret it later as well. What should one do now? What can they do?
The person who got angry?
Yeah. If they want to work on that anger.
If they want to work on their anger? Well, I would say that, firstly, I mean, there are so many tools, for self-help nowadays. I mean, I find journaling is like an amazing thing that they can do. You can have anger diaries, like, I got angry. Why did I get angry? Who did I get angry with? Was it a person? Was it a situation? And then if you keep a journal of your anger, and then you can see what are the common patterns of your anger, it'll reveal a lot about you. But basically, you have to want to change. That is the main thing. Once you say, okay, I want to change, that's when the journey starts.
And so what does the journey look like? What is the first step?
The first step is to admit that I'm not perfect, that I have anger, that I want to change this. Then you start delving more deeply into why I have this anger. Is it because of my genes? Is it because I'm a control freak? Is it because I have a lot of pain? So we talked of all these things. So then you start looking at what causes my anger.
So identifying the underlying emotion.
Yeah.
And the root cause of anger for yourself. So recognizing that.
Yeah. In our own scriptures, anger is not considered a secondary emotion. It's considered a primary emotion. So there are 6 enemies of the mind, as they call it. So anger is the second enemy. And there they say, which I believe is caused by desire. So if you look at every situation of anger, you get angry because something is not happening according to the way you want it. That is the desire.
Right. I think that is the ultimate root cause of not just anger, but also greed.
But the beauty of our scriptures is it even goes deeper and says, but what causes the desire? That's another subject altogether. But that's how you can go deeper and deeper into self-reflection and to understand your emotions,
Right. I want to get into what can one do specifically if they've, for example, understood that, okay, I have anger issues. I think a lot of people, when they're alone, do have that realization, whether they admit it in front of others or not.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, so then see, the person who's no realization that they have anger is probably, music to deaf ears.
No.
But if a person does want to make an effort, they themselves or somebody who they love, what can one do to sort of help with their anger, to manage their anger better? What is the process for that?
Okay. Firstly, let me tell you, it takes a long time for a person to admit that I want to change. I am fine. Everybody else is wrong. This is most people's attitude. Blame. So it takes a lot of maybe pain and suffering to say, I have to change. Once we get to that point, then it's easy. Because then a person can start reflection, self-reflection.
Right.
And then you start, exploring your inner world. You start looking at your anger. You say, okay, you start analyzing, dissecting a little bit, and then you find a kind of you begin to understand what anger is about. You begin to understand your primary emotions, what caused the anger. You can't after that say, no, but she provoked me, so I got angry. That is irrelevant. It's all about you and yourself. You're cleaning up yourself, So then you recognize what are your weak points. And it's okay to have weak points. We're all human beings. But to admit to ourselves that I have this weak point is very difficult for some people. The ego doesn't allow it, So you just need to understand that about yourself. So you look at your triggers and then you look at, how it's impacting my physical body. And not only my body, my whole family's body. Because, when you have one person in the family who's got anger issues, it's very scary for children. It's very traumatic, So they have grown up with those traumas and fear. And so you've caused all of that. Who was it? Actually, I better not name this, a Bollywood star. He's just recently said that, I haven't paid enough attention to my children, because I think he knows now, he's at this age, he's discovered that he actually needed to work on himself. And now he's taking time off from film to work on himself, so that, he's reached that stage. So we need to reach that stage. So once you start recognizing your triggers, like what are your weak points that trigger you, then you start going into how to cope, having, your strategies of coping with your triggers. Because your triggers you can't change. You can change your response to them, but you can't change your triggers. They will constantly keep coming.
Right.
You understand that, right?
No, I understand that. But I don't know if that's true for all triggers.
Yeah, because the trigger's coming from an external source. You can't control the external unless you remove yourself from a situation.
Right. Which is usually not possible in case of personal relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now first you identify your triggers. I think one of the tools you mentioned for that is journaling or self-reflection.
A lot of self-reflection, I think. Personally, I find journaling amazing. Then you keep a note of each time you get angry so that you can see your own patterns of anger. Then meditation is an amazing tool, of course, for anger, because in meditation, your self-awareness increases. And when your self-awareness increases, what happens is that normally, like when you get angry and you have a knee-jerk reaction, meditation will help you stop that knee-jerk reaction and help you to just take that little pause and respond instead of knee-jerk reaction, And then with more meditation, that response will also stop, because you'll begin to feel in your body the arising of the anger. So supposing you're my trigger point and you're saying things to trigger me, and with enough meditation practice, I'm able to actually feel my anger about to arise, but not arisen. And as soon as I see that it's arising, I can stop it. And then you do more meditation and you continue to trigger me. I'm doing more meditation. You're continuing to trigger me. Soon, before I know it, I'm saying, oh my God, poor Kshitij, he's still the same. Then you start having compassion for the person who triggers you, because your anger is gone.
That, of course, I think comes at a much later stage of practice.
Yeah.
Right.
But that is the journey. See, anger is not going to disappear in a few months or in even a year. It's a constant practice of whenever anger comes to you or your triggers are, triggering you, you're practicing what you are learning.
So from what I understand, there is obviously a cognizance about the triggers that a person is experiencing, and then their reaction/response to it. And these are the levels at which it can be sort of mitigated if somebody is dealing with anger.
Yeah.
Something very interesting you said was that with more awareness, let's say with journaling or meditation, you start to be more aware of the triggers at the time that they're happening.
Correct.
Before you actually give in to the reaction. And then you said that you can actually manage it better if you're aware of it. Could you talk us through what you can do? For example, if I'm being provoked or I feel like I'm being provoked and I can feel anger, what is it that I can do at that point?
Watch your body. What's happening to your physical body? Watch your mind. See, it's that gap between the stimulus and response. What are you going to do in that gap? That's what you're going to do. You're going
Right.
to watch your sensations in the body. You're going to watch how your mind is, which way it's going. You know, the vritti, the vortex of your mind, which way is it spinning. So once you start watching that, you don't reach the point of response
Right.
because the anger is coming from an external source, but your response is happening in an internal source. So you get caught in your internal journey, and that external journey becomes irrelevant.
Right.
So if you ask me, what can you do? You have to do the practice to be able to catch it in that gap.
Right.
Because that gap doesn't come to all of us naturally, and that gap can only be recognized if you've done enough work on your mind
Right.
through meditation.
This is actually, what very similar. So I'm a Vipassana practitioner. This is exactly what you realize after practicing.
Yeah.
That it's so
Yeah.
all emotions and all sensations are so temporary that once you start to watch it come, you can also start to watch it go by itself
Exactly.
without having to react or in whatever
Exactly.
situation. Understood. Now I want to talk about the course. So we've, for our viewers, we've developed a course on anger management, and I want to understand from you, what is the philosophy with which you sort of designed the whole course, and then we'll go deeper from there.
Okay. So, Kshitij, first I have to tell you that I really enjoyed creating the philosophy of the course. The whole curation was based a lot on my own personal experience and a huge amount of study and practice that I've done over 30 years. And it's been really nice to put it down in a structured way. And thanks to Seek, you've done a great job, I think, of
All
it.
you, Mala.
And so I have used a lot of different kinds of tools, because personally I have also done a lot of personal development work globally, not just in India, in Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore, Europe. So I've used a lot of the stuff that I've learned there, and used some therapeutic tools, a lot from the meditation practice, my own meditation teaching that I do. It's very relatable. And as you know, I've been a student of Vedanta for many years. So my deeper knowledge comes from our beautiful texts. I can't tell you how beautiful our own heritage is. So I've taken a lot. One session is based totally on that. Yeah.
This sounds super interesting.
Yes.
Because I also feel that, usually when you're looking at targeted development, it's, you have to increase the pace of your development. You need to pick up different tools from different places that really work together. Nobody can just pick up one tool and just be like, I'm just going to keep doing this. And when it all comes together, I think the progress is far faster and far sharper.
Yeah, and also because I've used, some Buddhist techniques. I've used some techniques from the Yoga Shastras, some from the Vedic Shastras. So it's different flavors.
Right.
But very relatable, I would say. So basically, the course is in 6 sessions. Is it okay to talk about that?
Yeah.
So basically, the course is in 6 sessions. Again, the first course is just generally about anger. What it is, how people show anger differently, covert anger, overt anger, which we talked about earlier. So just recognizing kind of the different forms of anger. And then the second session is identifying our own anger. That's not as easy as you think.
Right.
You know, to admit to yourself that I have withdrawn from my wife, withdrawn my communication from my wife because I'm angry. Not people are going to accept that.
Right.
They probably don't realize also that they've withdrawn, where the wife is saying, please talk, and he says, not now, you know.
Right.
It's very common. And sexual withdrawal also, on either side, that is a way of saying, I'm angry with you.
Right.
So if you don't talk these things out, the relationship won't be healthy. So identifying your own anger. Then the third one is again about the triggers. Third session. Triggers can be people, it can be situations, it can be places. So recognizing what triggers you, what makes you angry. That's the third. Fourth session is again on the physical impact on the body. Like I said, we have not just, when we get angry, our voice might start shaking, hands might start shaking. You might feel, trembling or sweating or very hot. But then there are deeper impacts like what stress can cause, illnesses. So that's why breathing is very important. That's another tool. Anger and breath, I teach people sometimes how when you have a very short breath up to here, if you do that, you'll realize it's the breath you associate with any form of stress. And that's the breath you have when you have anger. That's why people say, take 10 deep breaths, take 5 deep breaths. By taking that deep breath, you're dissipating the anger emotion.
Right.
So breath is another tool. So we have the physical impact. That's your fourth. And then in the fifth, we go into the kama krodha lobe, the desire. And if your desire is met, you have greed. If your desire is not met, you have anger. And then we touch very lightly on what causes the desire, because that is the absolute root cause, right? That's a deeper subject and more esoteric. So we don't really go fully into it. But in this fifth session, we start kind of realizing, we take an inventory of all the people that we've hurt, how we've hurt ourselves, how we've hurt others, how others have hurt us. And we start looking into a bit of forgiveness, bringing compassion into the session. And then finally, I decided to, because I love the Vietnamese mindfulness master, the Thich Nhat Hanh, call him Thai. I love his traditions and I love his approach. It's very gentle and very soft. So he teaches that we must never resist anything. We must embrace, always with love and compassion. So even anger, you must embrace as part of you. And in that love and compassion for your anger, the anger can dissolve. So you're not releasing the anger, you're dissolving the anger. So that's a very nice approach. So like, in Western therapies, they'll give you a cushion and a baseball bat and they'll tell you, keep bashing the cushion till your anger comes out. But he says that is still anger. So he teaches something to do with the subconscious mind and how the seed of mindfulness exists along with the seed of anger in your subconscious. So when the seed of anger is beginning to blossom or growing, then you have to tap on your seed of mindfulness and make it grow faster and longer and bigger so that it can dissolve the plant of anger which is growing in your mind. It's very beautiful.
Wow, I mean, I love the arc of the whole 6 sessions because it starts off with first understanding anger, then recognizing your own anger, which is very introspective and more experiential for people who are doing this. And then obviously the arc you mentioned on understanding the triggers, and then the impact it has on your physical body, and then finally techniques borrowed from the ancient texts and mindfulness, to how you can sort of manage those better with the help of those techniques. And are these sessions, primarily around these tools or specific tools, or are they meditation oriented? Are they physical body oriented? What is the format of the sessions largely?
A bit of everything. We're doing breathing for sure. We have a lot of journaling and a lot of self-reflective exercises and meditation every day, in every session. The thing is that it's not enough to just do the 6 sessions. What they learn from this is what they need to practice.
Right.
And then from this they can go deeper. But that practice is the key.
Right.
Right.
So there are tools that are given in every session that people can then practice.
There are lots and lots of tools, lots of infograms, lots of exercises, the journals, and the meditations. Yeah, they're giving a lot of tools for facilitating their journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mala, for taking time for this podcast. This is very nice. I think anger is a topic that needs to be spoken about a lot more than it currently is. And every time I chat with you, whether it's for the podcast or offline, I learn so much. Thank you for bringing in all the knowledge over the years for this, and helping us develop more and more things at Seek. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.